What investigators had first treated as an isolated crime scene quickly grew into something far more disturbing. Across multiple locations near Nanjing University, more black bags continued to appear, some in bushes, some in sidewalks, and even inside a construction site. Each were filled with human remains, carefully wrapped, methodically placed, you name it.
After enduring a long, frigid day at work, all anyone could want was to rush home, eat something warm, and finally rest. On a winter evening in Nanjing, a weary worker was trudging down the street, head bowed against the biting wind, when something unusual caught his attention. Lying on the sidewalk was a plastic bag. He almost ignored it, but a peculiar detail made him stop. The bag appeared to be filled with meat, a sight that for anyone with a true crime interest spelled immediate trouble. This eerily mundane discovery would soon be revealed as the start of one of China's most chilling unsolved mysteries, the infamous 2,000 pieces of meat stew, or the Nanjing University murder case, also known as the Dao Aiking case. It was January 19, 1996. And Nanjing that year was gripped by a winter so bitter that most residents stayed indoors, huddling over hot pot or sipping warm drinks in the hope of warding off the cold. One sanitation worker, however, was out on the freezing streets, performing overtime to keep the walkways safe and clear of snow and overflowing trash. During his rounds near Hao Road in Shinjuku, he stumbled across a handbag discarded by the roadside. Driven by curiosity, he opened it and discovered slices of meat that looked like they had already been cooked, neatly cut and brown like pork. He assumed someone had simply lost their groceries at Lucky Find, he thought, and decided to bring it home, planning on making a hearty stew to warm up after his shift. At home, he gathered carrots, potatoes, onions, and spices, intent on preparing the best stew of his life. He even rinsed the meat slices carefully, one by one. But as he reached into the container without looking, his hand grasped something strange, something long and solid. He pulled it out and was stunned. It was a human finger. He froze in shock, initially doubting his own senses. But when he looked back into the bag, he realized there weren't just one, but 3 human fingers mixed in with the meat. Horrified, he screamed in that moment. The dreadful realization dawned: if those fingers were real, this wasn't pork at all. Immediately, he called the police. At first, police officers suspected a prank, perhaps an exhausted worker's hallucination. But once they arrived and saw the bag for themselves, their attitudes changed. No one would throw away so much meat, and the presence of human fingers was undeniable. The package was rushed to the station, and after careful examination, the verdict was clear: the meat consisted of human remains. The police launched an extensive search across Nanjing, hoping to contain the horror. Around Nanjing University, they found more plastic-wrapped packages with body parts by the stadium, at the entrance gate, outside the hospital, and along random roadsides. The grisly discoveries continued. The following day, another bag appeared, this time containing cooked meat and a human head. 10 days later, investigators found clothing they believed belonged to the victim, in the era before DNA databases. Detectives relied on muscle tissue samples, hair, and clothing to identify the person. Soon, their efforts paid off. The victim was identified as Dao Aiking. Dao Aiking was born in March 1976 in Shanghao Village, Changjian District, Taizhou City, Jiangsu Province. As the youngest of 2 sisters in a struggling family, she grew up with hardship beside her older sister, Dao Aihua. Dao had to wear hand-me-downs, and during winter, the two shared a single coat. While other children enjoyed playtime and treats, the Dao sisters saved every coin for small luxuries. Dao Aihua, the older sibling, left school early to help support their families, so that Dao Aiking could continue her education. Dao aching, aware of her sister's sacrifice and the family's financial strain, wanted to help as well. At one point, she asked her sister if she could start working too, but Dao Hua insisted she stay in school, urging her to study hard and aspire to a better life. After breaking through barriers most in her family could never overcome, Dao Aiking achieved what once seemed impossible. She excelled in her studies and secured a place at Nanjing University's School of Adult Education in October 1995, majoring in computer applications under the Department of Information Management. Her family supported her with everything they had. Although they couldn't buy her a new computer or expensive gifts, they shielded Dao from their own struggles, even withholding news of her grandfather's death and her sister's marriage to keep her focused on her studies, hoping that her future could surpass theirs. Dao worked diligently, dedicating herself to academics. Her classmates saw her as an introverted and simple person, usually wearing just a handful of outfits, never preoccupied with appearance yet always tidy. She had a reserved nature and preferred solitude, but maintained a small circle of friends for occasional company. Even in Nanjing, she preserved close ties with old friends from her hometown. On January 7, 1996, Dao returned home to dine with some of them, heading back to her university the following day. On January 10, around 5 p.m. Dao was last seen leaving the Gulu campus. Earlier, a dispute had arisen in her dormitory. A roommate had broken rules by using an induction cooker, leading the dorm supervisor to levy a fine on both the roommate and Dao, even though Dao denied any involvement. Frustrated, she left after failing to persuade the staff. That day, she wore a red coat with a black lining and image fixed as her final appearance. At first, nobody realized Dao was missing. It was exam week, and she was known to seclude herself and study when stressed. Moreover, her neatly made bed suggested she hadn't planned on being away for long. Her classmates thought she simply needed a break, possibly to handle something urgent. The dorm staff, aiming to avoid unnecessary panic, hesitated to notify her family and kept the situation within a close circle of friends and staff. The truth only surfaced on January 19, while cleaning near the university. A janitor discovered a handbag by the roadside. Inside, he found what looked like pork, but was horrified to spot human fingers among the slices. The police were alerted immediately. An investigation quickly unfolded. Police soon found more plastic wrap packages, each containing body parts cut into small, uniform pieces so precise that most passers-by might assume it was merely pork. These bags appeared throughout Nanjing, many located near university grounds. Because of the small size of each piece, it took authorities longer than usual to even identify the victim as female, relying on muscle tissue and physical characteristics. As the search expanded, more grisly finds emerged in places like Shuzhou and other corners of the city, more bags with cooked meat, items of clothing, and even a cooked human head. By the end of the search, authorities had recovered over 2,000 pieces, each meticulously wrapped and scattered around Nanjing University. The precision of the dismemberment was chilling. The cuts were so clean, especially around the neck, that investigators believe the perpetrator must have had specialized knowledge, possibly a surgeon or a butcher. Some of the body parts showed signs of being cooked for multiple days, which muddled attempts to determine the exact time or even cause of death. The situation became more macabre when investigators discovered that Dao's critical organs, her heart, liver, and spleen, were missing, fueling unsettling theories that have never been put to rest. After the disappearance, the Nanjing police worked tirelessly, reaching out to families of missing persons in hopes of identifying the scattered remains. Eventually, identification was possible thanks to a distinctive mole still visible on the right side of the victim's cheek. When her family received the news, they were devastated. The young woman into whom they had poured all their hopes, Dao Aiking, had been brutally murdered and her body desecrated. The most harrowing realization was that her killer was still at large, blending in with the city as though nothing had happened. During the investigation, a senior officer publicly asserted that this crime was not the work of an amateur. Whoever had committed the murder possessed a deep understanding of human anatomy, executing the act with methodical precision and cruelty. Initially, the authorities focused their attention on those closest to Dao, classmates, teachers, and university staff. They developed a suspect profiles, one describing a physically fit, middle-aged man living alone with access to a private stove. Despite exhaustively searching the entire university, not a single person matched this profile. The investigation expanded into the surrounding neighborhoods, chasing even the faintest clues, yet each lead led to a dead end. Public surveillance, which might have helped in modern times, was virtually non-existent on campus in the mid-1990s, limiting the police's resources. Nonetheless, the authorities took the case extremely seriously, assembling a special task force within Nanjing University itself and deploying investigators around the clock. After 3 months of exhaustive efforts and without results, the task force was disbanded. Rumors began to spread across campus. A photo of Dao Aiking was posted publicly. Every student was required to provide proof they had an alibi for the night she vanished. Even so, the investigation again reached a standstill, and the perpetrator slipped away. With alibis for all students, teachers, and close friends, those within her immediate social circle were systematically ruled out. With these options exhausted, investigators began to speculate that Dao's killer might not have known her personally. The theory shifted toward a random attack, or perhaps the work of an unknown psychopath. As the story gained media attention, every detail released by police, types of bags used, specific items like a handbag and a patterned bedsheet, was publicized in hopes that someone might recognize something and offer a crucial lead. Despite the publicity, help appeals, and even a reward for information, no meaningful tips surfaced. The case went cold as the investigation deadline passed. 20 years later, on January 19, 2016, a local Nanjing social media article drew attention to a chilling legal reality. The 20-year statute of limitations was set to expire for the Nanjing University murder. If no arrest was made, the killer could never be prosecuted even in the case of a confession. Public outrage ensued, with citizens demanding the authorities break with the statute for such a horrifying case. In response, the Ministry of Public Security's Criminal Investigation Bureau issued an official statement promising there would be no expiration date on the case and no forgetting. Investigation would continue indefinitely. Since then, legal scholars have debated whether a statute of limitations should apply in so brutal a case. Depending on interpretations of the law, authorities may seek special approval for prosecution if a suspect ever emerges. Dao Aiking's family, for their part, have expressed that their only wish is to know the truth, even declaring that they would forgive the perpetrator if only they could learn the motives for Dao's death. Over the years, the case's strange and gruesome features have led to repeated waves of online discussion, spawning new theories and speculation. Some theorize that the murderer cooked and dispersed the remains to destroy evidence. Others believe it may have been a personal crime motivated by rage or a twisted impulse. Yet, despite countless discussions and renewed interest, Dao Aiking's killer has never been identified, and the case remains one of China's most haunting unsolved mysteries. After an Evening Post published a photo of Dao Aiking with short, boyish hair, widespread panic swept through the city. Fear grew that a serial killer might be targeting women who resembled Dao, especially those with short hair or wearing red coats, just as Dao had on the day she vanished. Darker rumors circulated as well. The fact that Dao's vital organs were missing led to speculation that she had fallen victim to human trafficking for organ harvesting. This theory found traction due to the context of China's organ trade. According to research by Shui Wang, since 1983, the main source of human organs in China had been executed criminals. The practice was officially abolished in 2015, resulting in a severe organ shortage, which coincided with reports of increasing missing person cases across the country. Despite the speculation, there was never concrete evidence linking Dao's murder to organ trafficking, but the missing organs made this theory particularly persistent. Another widely circulated possibility was that the killer had cannibalistic motives, that Dao was murdered to sate a craving for human flesh. However, critics of this theory questioned why, if cannibalism were the motive, the perpetrator would have left body parts scattered all over Nanjing instead of making them disappear completely. As the case languished unsolved, online intrigue grew. In March 2007, a user named Shilio Chop posted a detailed summary of the case online. In May 2008, anonymous users on Bootoba launched a forum dedicated to compiling every detail and theory about the murder. On June 19, 2008, a user posting as Heimeza shared an analysis suggesting the murderer might have known Dao, or perhaps even been infatuated with her. This post triggered intense internet debates, with some speculating whether Heimeza had inside knowledge or a personal connection to the case. The situation escalated when Nanjing's Modern Express newspaper reported on the online frenzy. Soon after, Heimeza's posts were deleted and the user vanished from public view. Later, media reported that Heimeza had agreed to cooperate with investigators if needed, but local police stated the posts were just speculative and not based on direct evidence. The forum's editor-in-chief clarified the posts were deleted at the request of authorities, not due to any real connection between the poster and the crime. On July 4, 2008, a netizen using the name Dao Hongshuan traveled from Shandong to Nanjing and Jiangyan to conduct his own investigation, even meeting Dao's father. However, Dao's brother-in-law was suspicious and asked local authorities to question the man as a precaution. Later that month, Dao Hongshuan posted an analysis on his blog, claiming that Wang Dane, the author of the 1998 novel The Memorial, might have been involved in the homicide. The novelist responded dismissively, labeling the accusations as wild conjecture influenced by earlier online rumors. Years passed with no significant breakthroughs. Then, in May 2022, a viral post on Weibo claimed that the Nanjing University murder case had finally been solved. The rumor spread quickly, especially after the recent capture of a suspect in another high-profile case, the Hulin police murder. Hopes of resolution surged only to be dashed shortly afterward when Dao's family, the Nanjing police, and the Cyberspace Administration all stepped forward to confirm the claims were false. The rumors were laid to rest, but the mystery surrounding Dao Aiking's case remains as unsettling as ever. Despite extensive investigations, the Nanjing University mutilation case of Dao Aiking remains unsolved. Years after her murder, social media posts sparked recurring waves of public uproar. One original Weibo user, who spread false claims about a breakthrough in the case, was even banned for causing such panic. In the decades since Dao's death, Nanjing University made small gestures to acknowledge the tragedy. The school refunded her tuition fees to her family as a sign of remorse. On March 29, 2021, 25 years after the murder, Dao's sister, Dao Aihuo, filed a lawsuit at the Gulu District People's Court, seeking 1.62 million yuan, about $246,000, in compensation. She claimed the university was negligent. Not only had staff punished Dao for her roommate's infraction on January 10 and then let her go off alone, but her dismembered remains were later found all around campus, highlighting broader safety lapses. However, just a week later, on April 6, the lawsuit was quietly withdrawn, without any public explanation. 23. Meanwhile, Diao's father, Dao Dechan, returned to the university, seeking updates for times in total, holding out hope for any news about the case. His own situation had become desperate. He was in poor health and pressed for financial support. 3. The university gave him 10,000 yuan, but required him to sign an agreement promising not to pursue any further compensation related to his daughter's case. Nearly 30 years on, the crime still casts a long shadow. The case has become one of China's most notorious unsolved murders, often compared to the infamous Black Dahlia case in the United States. Yet, unlike the Black Dahlia, where suspects and leads emerged, Dao Aiking's case produced no solid suspects, no definitive clues, only painful, unresolved questions and enduring trauma for her family. To this day, her relatives rarely mention her name, fearful of reopening the wounds and reliving the horror or identifying her remains laid out in the police station. For the family, and for many in China, the scars remain deep. Justice and closure have never been found. And that brings us to the end of today's video, a case that remains one of China's most disturbing and enduring mysteries. Nearly 30 years have passed, yet Dao Aiking's story is still etched into the collective memory, her family's pain left unresolved, and the truth still buried somewhere in the shadows. If you found this story gripping, give the video a like and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into real-life mysteries and unsolved cases from around the world. Thank you for watching and for keeping Diao's memory alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and never stop seeking the truth.